All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Round the Fire with Kingsby Safaris. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is, I think, probably, I've kind of lost count a little bit here, but it might be 11th or 12th interview that I'm going to do back to back. And I've really enjoyed absolutely all of them. And one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing a lot of these episodes, apart from hearing the different hunting stories from the guys and hearing the perspectives of somebody that kind of has been hunting in my old stomping grounds and my old homelands and hearing their perspectives is something I really enjoy. But one of the main factors that I enjoyed is that I get feedback from people that send me messages on Facebook or by email, and guys say that they took information from different from different episodes, different interviews, and they actually helped them to plan a trip. And I've even had a couple of guys that said, I reached out to one or two of your guests, and they put me in touch with the outfitter that I'm hunting with next year or whenever it may be. So that's absolutely awesome. And I know that this episode we're about to do with my guest today is going to be no different. I'm sure it's going to be jam packed, full of all kinds of information. So hopefully, anybody that's listening to this is kind of sitting on the fence in terms of where to go in South Africa or with outfitters. I know we're going to have a couple of good gems and golden nuggets for you in this episode. So I'm going to bring in my guest, somebody that's been to Africa multiple times. I've had a little sneaky peek look at some of his trophy photos on Facebook, and man, looks like he had a fantastic time. So without further ado, here is Charles DeMakis. Charles, thanks very much for joining me, man. It's good to have you on the show.
That's awesome. Good to talk to you. I know we've kind of back and forth a little bit on Facebook, and it's good to talk.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, when you said that, I kind of went back and I recognized your profile picture. And again, it's so cool the little communities that they got going on social media amongst hunters. And kind of seems like we never really get to meet except for the shows, but yet you can jump on a podcast like this and end up chatting to somebody for an hour, 2 hours, like you've known each other for a long time.
Right, for sure, absolutely. And I mean, the social media and the internet was a great help starting out in figuring out what I wanted to do. The Hunt Africa website is fantastic for information, and then same thing on Facebook. You can find a bunch of different groups on there that are just a wealth of knowledge, especially when it came to where I wanted to hunt on this last trip, which took me to the Eastern Cape. That's really how I got into that.
Yeah, the amount of information out there is endless, really, isn't it? You get guys that put on absolutely fantastic reports. You get guys that do videos, guys that share traveling with guns, guys that share how ammo performed, guys that share different things about where to stay on that transition from Joburg to PE, all those types of things. The information out there is absolutely incredible. And I always get the impression that hunters are so happy to share that with anybody. You ask a question and the guys are like, this is what I did, try this, get a hold of this person. It really helps so much.
100%. I mean, when you first look at it, it just looks daunting almost. It's like, where are we going with this? What are we going to do? And in all reality, it ends up being a breeze. And once you get a few nuggets here and there, it's like now, I go for a fourth time. I know exactly what I need to do. It's not even a question, and it's simple. It's like you just go through the process.
Yeah.
Once you've done it once, then you know what you're doing.
So why don't you, for the folks listening, just give them a little bit of background of yourself. Where are you in the States at the moment? Kind of a little bit of your hunting background. And then what was for you that little spark, that little trigger that got you into Africa?
Sure. So I'm up in North Dakota, actually. I'm born and raised North Dakotan. I grew up basically hunting and fishing. Started with my dad and my brother as kids, tagging along, and eventually got the single shotgun. Went out. We've chased a lot of upland birds up here, was kind of our thing, but the ducks and geese are plentiful as well, but we're more upland hunters. And from that, it went into whitetail deer hunting. We've got pronghorn in the state, chased some pronghorn around here before, and just kind of grew from there as I got older. Kept hunting, and my dad just would like to go on adventures, and we started Canadian bear hunts, and then a caribou hunt when I was a senior in high school in Quebec, actually. That's a whole other story, interesting excursion. And it's just, it then I started having kids, same thing, bringing them up at the lake, catching fish, getting them out in the field, as youngsters, just following the dog around and walking around, and it took off from there. So I've kind of dabbled around North America quite a bit. Hunted Alaska with some friends, hunted in Oregon, hunted in Colorado, and I just, to be honest, what kind of spurred Africa was I got sick of eating tags and spending thousands of dollars to come home with nothing. The price of elk hunts have become outrageous, and you eat 2 of those trips with nothing to show for it. It's like, it wasn't fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of quit really doing like guided hunts. I was able to do Alaska with friends who are residents, and we did DIY moose hunting, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Unbelievable experience. Living in the backcountry for 12 days where you're taking a boat in and out, and you're doing everything on your own. It's fantastic. But Africa came along with my oldest son, who's graduating high school here back in 2023. And we were looking for something to do. I mean, we've been hunting deer around here, pheasants, and I knew a guy who books for an outfitter in Limpopo, and his friend, who I got to know. We started talking, met up with him at a sports show, and I said to my son, like, you want to go to Africa? And he's like, well, yeah, why not? So it was like, well, we decided to split a 10-day starter package, which I think, a lot of your listeners see. Your typical sports show thing, kind of your introduction plains game hunt. We were going to split it up. There were a few things I was interested in hunting outside of the package, that I might add on, but the biggest thing was like, let's get the blessed buck and impala, things like that for my son that he could be easy with, and so we booked the hunt and went from there. Getting that first time going, logistics of everything was a bit overwhelming, but
yeah.
Most, as you would know, and most people know, your outfitter will handle a lot of that, and it's just a matter of getting it to them and then understanding it's like, okay, they'll be there on the other side when you come through the 2 double doors in Joburg and you step into the arrivals hall. They're going to be there, and then everything's good. So that's what kind of got Africa going. Really never was on my radar a lot until I started looking at, all right, these guys are going over there. They're spending half of what I just spent on an elk hunt, and they're coming home with 5, 6, 7 animals. It's like, well, let's look into this. So that's where it kind of came from.
Yeah, so many important points that you touched on there, and somebody now that's recently moved to the US, I still haven't figured out the tag system, and by the sounds of it, it kind of may just be a case of, eventually I'd go back to Africa. Obviously, we'll go back to visit family and friends, but I've got enough connections where I could do some good hunts there and things like that. But you tend to hear this reoccurring story of guys looking at what the prices are here in the States, the hassle, the rigmarole they got to go to, and then all of a sudden a package pops up on their Facebook or social media line, and they're like, wow, for that amount that I was going to spend on that elk, I'm coming home with 10, 11, 12 animals, whatever it may be. So it's always very interesting. But as you said earlier, just before offline, once you kind of start dabbling into that, then it can be very overwhelming with a lot of information coming at you, choosing South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, Botswana. And then once you choose your country, then it's Eastern Cape, Limpopo, then it's which outfitter. So it really is kind of difficult to get started in it. But I think what happens is once you kind of pick that pathway, as you know, you can't, as you look for more information, you learn more things about it too. And that kind of helps streamline it. A lot of the times, and feel free to carry on with some hunting stories when I ask this question, but in your first trip that you went there, did you find that a lot of the research that you did kind of helped you play out in your first trip? Or do you feel like after your first trip, you thought, wow, I was way off and maybe got a little bit lucky and can prepare better for my next trip? And how was it that first time for you?
I would say a little bit of both. I I picked the route we went based on, an individual who I know really well who had multiple hunts with this outfit, like 7, 8. So really well versed with this particular outfitter, the property, the the animals. But I believe even leading up to that, I was still looking at a lot of things, even a lot of outfitters in that particular area. You know, what are they showing? What are things like? What's your typical day look like? So it wasn't as straight. I didn't feel unprepared,
Yeah.
but I'd say like the first thing I noticed was the game was a lot smaller than I thought it was
Okay.
when you get there and see them on the hoof.
Yeah.
It's like I thought Impala would be bigger, but you know, it's not as big as you think it is. Or man, that kudu's huge. It doesn't necessarily look that big on the picture on the internet or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess you're going to be as comfortable as, I guess, as best as you can prepare, but still, even stepping off the plane through the doors, it's like, all right, what's next? I'm like, that experience of, all right, now we've got the ride to camp and rolling in and seeing that all for the first time is you can't really be ready for it right away.
And why don't you share with us a few experiences of your first trip? Because I know you've been you've been to South Africa multiple times and hunted with a couple of different outfitters, which is really what I really want to get into and kind of
Yeah,
share those perspectives. But let's hear kind of how your first trip went. I think that'll be quite interesting.
yeah, no, it would. So the first trip was 2023. Had my son with. Um, we were the first. We were the first hunters in camp that year. We're in. We left right after Easter, so we're in that early April time frame. Um, so the bush was really green, really thick. Um, so spotting things got interesting. My son wanted to hunt a zebra, so basically first day after sighting in, getting settled, going through all the rules, getting the pep talk,
Yeah.
getting sighted in, for an afternoon drive. It's like, all right, well, we took off and in some just heavy bush, and looking for zebra. And I'm like, man, how are you going to find a zebra in this thing? I can't see 5 feet off the truck, you know. Um, and got lucky, we come around and popped up on some Cape Buffalo who didn't like us being around. And when they tore off through the bush, all of a sudden black and white stripes started coming the other way.
Yeah.
So we weren't, it went quick. We weren't hunting 2 hours and we had a zebra down, and my son was thrilled, and things were great. This particular outfit is an extremely expansive operation.
Okay.
Lot of parcels, and kind of the difference, which I can get into later, is versus the Eastern Cape hunting versus
Sure.
at this up in Limpopo this is all operator owned land, so you're not on farm, you're not on a farmer's concession,
Mhm.
where your outfitter has a relationship to hunt this particular parcel, that parcel. This operation was fully enclosed in basically farming, ranching.
Right.
So on top, the safari hunting that's going on, the animals are also being bred or sustained, grown.
Yep.
I hate saying farming, but it is. It's game farming,
Yeah. Yeah.
on the property versus where you might be in a different part of the country on a 12,000 acre sheep farm that the springbuck are there,
Yeah.
and it's supplementing that operator's income by bringing an outfitter in with his hunters, to go hunting. So that between my two different trips was a bit of a dichotomy. But I will say, the Limpopo hunting up there, was fantastic. the game quality and the management was second to none. And the game quality and the management down along the coast and south was also the same. It was not being any different outside of the sense that I would say that there isn't a feed pile out for the spring bug.
Yeah.
Particularly out there, but there is, up north.
Yeah, it's as I kind of said, offline before we hit record, as an Eastern Cape boy myself and an ex outfitter from that region, I really do try not to kind of get into the Limpopo versus Eastern Cape and show my bias, because obviously I'd always choose the Eastern Cape just from what I knew. But it's a question I get a lot from guys is which one do you go to? And I'll always say Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, Northwest, Northern Cape, whichever one you choose, you're going to have an incredible experience. They're great hunting. But at the same time, I can't really explain to you how different they are. That is something you have to experience. And you yourself, as somebody that has experienced it, is there, I suppose you kind of touched on it in one way, in that a lot of the times up in Limpopo, you do get these big, fantastic game farm areas where an array of game and it's out there. But down in the Eastern Cape, you kind of get this mix of agricultural land, wildlands, a lot of the natural animals habitats down there. Is there any more kind of points that you can bring up that you felt were really different between the two?
Well, yeah, I mean, so you're exactly right in what you're saying there is it's hard to describe it till you've experienced it. And it's to each his own. Your experience, what one hunter might be looking for is exactly what Limpopo has to offer.
Yes.
You want more of the flat bushveld, or and more of the Baki spotting, then pursuing animal type experience. Or maybe you're more into, I want to get my boots on the ground and hunt eland in the mountains. I hunted eland in the mountains in the Eastern Cape. Eland aren't in the mountains in Limpopo.
Yeah,
it's completely different. And you think it'd be easy to find an eland? It's not at all. It was a struggle, and resulting in a very long day and a very nasty bruise on my thigh. And we still didn't find the eland. But again, here you go. Here's another beautiful thing about Africa. It's like, okay, I hunted eland. I didn't get charged for it because I didn't get it. Instead, around the next corner, an hour later, we got on a herd of zebra, which I was looking for. Was able to harvest a zebra instead. So you have the ability to take what the bush provides, instead of being hamstrung for 10 days looking for one animal. And if you don't get it, you're out of luck. But I guess I kind of got off course of your question there.
No, spot on. And it kind of leads me nicely into the following question from that is that, we often say that terrain, vegetation, climate, it's all different. And I think a lot of the times the hunters understand that, but they might not also realize that the way that they run is very different too. The way that the outfitter operates down in the Eastern Cape versus Limpopo is different too. Not one is any better than the other. Did you notice much of a difference in terms of the way that your safari is put together, the way that the PH handled things from each one of those trips that you went on? Guys, I'm going to interrupt this episode for just a quick minute because I got something cool to announce. As you can see over my shoulder, with this big thunderstorm rolling in, we've had some great rains out here in West Texas. And that usually means one thing. We're going to have a really good hunting season. I've been driving around, checking on the cattle, checking on the fencing, checking everything on the ranch, and I cannot get over how many deer we're seeing. And they are in incredible condition. The buck are ready in their velvet, and it is looking good. So, if you guys are like me, I've always thought it's never too early to plan for hunting season. We are running a little bit of a special at the moment here on the ranch. It is a buck and a doe combo for a weekend hunt. So that's Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday morning. So if you are looking for a good, honest, traditional, low fence, West Texas whitetail hunt, then get in touch with me by my email, johnomcque@gmail.com. I'll send you all the details and you can come and hunt whitetail here on the ranch with me. We got everything. We got the blinds, we got the feeders. I personally prefer a little bit of walk and stalk hunting. So if you're looking to fill your freezer, or maybe you're looking to get the kiddos into hunting, maybe they can shoot their first doe or buck, this is the place to do it. We have only got a few limited spots available for the end of this year. So don't delay, get in touch with me today and we'll try and put together a really cool West Texas whitetail hunt for you guys. Okay, let's get back to that episode. Cheers, guys.
They were different. You're right. It seems like, from just my experience, Limpopo is more business like.
Okay.
Like it's like a core. We're running this as an operation down to everything from, when, how the meals were prepared and laid out to, what time the fire starts back at camp, things like that. Versus in the Eastern Cape, that hunt felt to me more like we have a specific target for the day. Say we're hunting springbuck today, because I was looking for the slam.
Yeah.
So one location had common, black, and coppers. So we were pursuing those three on that particular farm that day. So that was the only plan, and it was more free flowing, I felt.
Okay.
But for instance, hunting springbuck that day, got a common. We're taking care of that. Got a snow sleet storm, so we tucked in behind a bush so the trackers could kind of stay dry, and was we were out in the middle of nowhere. It blows over, and on the hillside is an absolute tank of an Impala. And if he's like, you've always said you take an Impala every trip. I said, I'll take a big Impala every time. He's like, well, that's a big Impala. And I got to look at him. And he said, do I need to ask? I said, no.
No.
Off we went. So, it seemed like not off the cuff and by no means unplanned, but more leisurely, almost, versus A to B to C to D, so on and so forth. Also, I think with an operation where your pH is not, well, I was with my outfitter who PH'd me, so it was his company. I was with him directly, not a secondary PH.
Yeah.
But where he doesn't have all the logistics going on of farm management, employee management, breeding operation management, and the overhead that goes with that plays into the whole thing as well, I think. It's like we're hunting. It's all about relationships with the farmers, the landowners, the lodges, and I don't have to worry about, did the feed get out today? Did the salt block get out today? Am I going to make the land payment today? The help's got to get paid today. You have 80, 100 people working on the farm versus it's a pH, a tracker, a skinner, and a lodge operator.
Yeah, I can 100% relate to that in terms of, when I first had my operation starting out, it's kind of, the one-man show and his dog type of thing. And you book one client at a time and they get your full attention. And then as the years develop and you start getting a reputation, maybe you feel like you can book 2, 3 clients at a time. And then you start bringing in a PH to run some hunts at the same time. And I remember towards the end of my time there, as I kind of got a little bigger, I mean, I was never a big operation, but I'd sometimes book 2, maybe 3 hunters at the same time. And, I always remember you're on the side of a hill and let's say you're glassing for kudu and you just get that little bit of cell signal and all of a sudden your phone's going off and you're looking and it's hunters wanting to send a deposit. It's the taxidermist who sent you a text to say that there's hair slip on this one. It's the somebody's telling you that, there's a problem at the lodge that you got to get a hold of. And that transition of becoming like a PH outfitter just does pile it all onto you. And I remember at that time just being like, there reaches a level where you can't give the person you're with that 100% full on attention. And it's very difficult, and it's a real juggling act. And I think, to get to my point, that a lot of the hunters don't realize is that when you're comparing outfitters, it's very difficult to compare apples with pears. You're going to get these big outfitters that, as you say, they've got it all running absolutely smoothly like clockwork. And then you're going to get those very small outfitters that, like myself, like my friend, who's just one client at a time, and you get all their attention. It might not necessarily be their property, or it might be their property. You might travel to concessions, or you might not travel to concessions. It's these small little things that you kind of dive in a little bit deeper. And to go again on what you said about the Eastern Cape, I think a lot of the times the feedback, at least that I've gotten from people, is that you kind of get almost this farm style, this homely almost feel about the Eastern Cape. Like, a lot of the times you're hunting with someone and their family out in the Eastern Cape. You kind of forget that you are with an operation that you've booked with. I don't know if maybe you picked that up too.
100%. Absolutely. It seemed more like family and camping versus 4-star, 5-star B&B machine. Not business and machine like isn't fair, but almost like it's got a very distinct structure. Like, believe me, I'm not saying one is better than the other.
Mhm.
Fantastic safaris on both sides, 100%. We'll hunt with both of them again, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just it comes down to, I think, you were doing this as well. Where are you? What is your niche, or what demographic are you focusing on? Limpopo is like buying a Cadillac to me.
Mm-hmm.
You pay, it costs more to hunt up there. It's got the reputation, but is it any better than a Chevrolet? Not necessarily. Maybe that's not a fair comparison, but it seems like it. Like, I will say this: both lodges I stayed at were on par with each other. Do I see that as super important? Me, not particularly. I don't need to have marble in my bathroom, in my chalet, or on the countertops for dinner. I like the rustic farmhouse feel of the lodge that was in the Eastern Cape, and the same, the chalets had the same feel. Food was excellent both places. No, nothing changed there, but it's just a matter of, I think, what are you targeting? That 5-star hunter, that's important to them, and they're willing to pay that in the trophy fees to get that, versus what you might see somewhere else. I guess it's kind of I think it's the nature maybe of this particular area of the country where I've grown up, is like, we're about the experience.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I'm part of this. And yeah, I will 100% agree with you on the sense that it felt like family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a memory just popped into my mind while you're speaking about it. I remember kind of halfway through my career, and while my business was established, I'll never forget, I got a request from a hunter that wanted to bring out 6 other hunters, and he wanted to hunt the Eastern Cape, and each guy sent me a list of animals they wanted, and it was a long list. And there was buffalo on there was sable on there was giraffe. I was just seeing dollar signs just flying all over the place. It was kind of one of those emails that you get there. And I remember telling my wife about it, and then I kind of just, this realization hit me. And I said to her, I'm going to tell the guys that I can't help them, because I knew just logistically I couldn't handle something that big. I couldn't handle all those hunters. I didn't have the vehicles, I didn't have the trackers, didn't have the skinners, didn't have enough PHs. And I also knew my areas, and I knew the experience, again, as you said, the niche that I was offering. I couldn't give all those guys the personal experience they wanted. It didn't fit in with what I was able to do. And there was a big outfit up in Limpopo that I knew quite well, and I passed them on to them, and they booked with them. And I saw the that quintessential old safari photo that they do with all the heads and the skulls
Hmm.
layout. Oh man,
Yeah.
I almost broke down in tears. I was like, oh geez, my bank manager's probably going to hate me for that one. But nonetheless, I had to realize that it's not something I could do or I could handle. And
Right.
again, to go into what you said, you're going to get those guys that are going to come to it and they're going to say, this is what the experience I wanted. Um, so the fact that you actually did get that is pretty cool. And I'm glad for that. But is there what I probably forgot to start asking this at the start there, but how many times did you actually go to South Africa? Is it just once in Limpopo, once in the Eastern Cape?
No, so in 23, I had 23 and 24 up in Limpopo, same
Okay.
outfitter, and then then just this past May was in the Eastern Cape, and
Uh,
and I what got me kind of thinking about the Cape was after I got back the last time, there were like I wanted to pursue some more animals still. Like I was able to harvest Limpopo bushbuck and greater kudu, greater southern up in Limpopo.
yep.
Like, well, there's Eastern Cape kudu and there's the Eastern Cape bushbuck, and I love these spirals. Uh,
Yeah.
had Nyala from the first hunt up in Limpopo, but I'm like, I'm seeing these pictures, and I'm talking to some people, I'm doing some research, and I'm like, I wonder if these hunters don't understand that the Eastern Cape grows some amazing Nyala.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'm like, I got to try for that down there. So I started just kind of looking at a few different outfitters, sending some feelers, and again, it's the internet, the power of the power of the internet.
Yeah.
Um, got in touch with a few, got into some forums and got some names and just started talking to people. And it's hard when you're half a world away to make a choice where you're talking to somebody on WhatsApp, and a reference or two. I've been a reference before, and you're a reference for a reason. You had a good experience.
Right.
Uh,
Yep.
Not to say that um, that's bad or not, but um, it's just kind of the nature of things. So, and it just started it gets like a tick, got under my skin. I'm like, this is a beautiful country. It's a big country. It's diverse biospheres.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go check this place out. So, I'm not one who's not afraid to go hunt by himself. I have friends that like to go. My my one particular friend couldn't make it this year. We're gonna try and do something in 28. Actually, we are gonna do something in 28. I said, well, the heck with that. I'm going. Um, it's kind of what has become my escape from the daily grind of work. It's like, give me 12 days hunting something somewhere, and it kind of brings you back to a nice center. Um,
Whereabouts in the Eastern Cape specifically did you hunt?
so I flew to East London from Joburg,
Okay.
and then we were hunting in the general area of Queenstown.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, and then out did did some hunting over near is it Stirkstrom?
Yeah.
Stirkstrom?
Yes, Dextrum.
Yep. Yeah, there we go. Yep. And then did a couple days down on supposed to hunt for a couple days down on the coast around Comga. That was particularly looking for bushbuck
Mhm.
and Nyala, even though we had seen some dandies up in the mountains near Queenstown, turned into one day I was able to get both of them in a day, which was absolutely crazy. And
Oh,
I said to
nice.
yeah, I said to my PH, I said, we're good. Day 9 is for hanging out, having a beer, and we're not hunting. We're gonna go walk in the Indian Ocean.
That's it.
Uh, so yeah, I saw quite a variation from the coast, to the mountains, and then I think, as we got further out there near Stirkstrom, that's kind of where the crew sort of begins. I know we weren't directly in it, but again, just in an hour and a half drive, tremendous difference
Yeah,
uh,
it is.
in what you were hunting.
Yeah, that's the Ekstrom area. That's where you're starting to get into some really good sort of fall ribbok country, mountain reedbuck
Mhm.
around there, and also fantastic kudu country too. Did you end up getting an Eastern Cape kudu? If you did, I'd love to
I
hear the
did.
contrast between a greater and a Cape and how those kind of hunts would compare.
Well, I did, yes, on the second day. Um, and in terms of, I think the hunts are completely different, at
Right.
least in this particular, I'd say this particular in that mountainous the Queenstown area, because we were hunting essentially mountain Cape Kudu.
Yes.
So it's glassy, and it's all right. Staring at the hillsides, staring at the hillsides, staring at the hillsides. Like the amount of kudu in the first 2 days that we looked at was amazing. But I had an absolutely excellent PH outfitter. He was like, I am not taking a kudu unless it meets my standard. And I mean, 3 or 4 of them I'm looking at in the spotting scope and like, he's beautiful. He's like, no, not ready yet. Not ready yet.
Okay.
So I ended up.
Feel free to give him a shout out. I mean, that's always a good PH. Don't worry, I'll send him an invoice later. I'll track him down for this free promo. But feel free to give him, because that's important as a professional hunter.
Oh, absolutely. So I was hunting the Eastern Cape with Kai River Safaris and Andrew Renton.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. Good outfit. Very good outfit.
Absolutely. Cool. Yep. And then the place up north, fairness to both, because both outstandings. That was Warthog Safaris, and that's Teeny Bamberger.
Yes, I've heard of them. Okay, another good outfit. Oh, fantastic, man. Cool.
Yep, absolutely. So two fantastic outfitters. Can't go wrong. So anyway, back to the Eastern Cape Kudu. So we finally locked on the one that I ended up harvesting at about lunchtime, and we went back for lunch. The tracker stayed out with eyes on him because he was not leaving. He was actually off the mountain in the bottom and chasing cows, and he kept eyes on him, and they kind of disappeared, bedded down, whatever, midday, lost in the veld. And so we got back out, got up on a copy, and sat staring into nothing for 4 hours until they decided to start wandering about again. And sure enough, they did. He was in pursuit, following very closely behind a cow. She, worked her way through the bush, and we just had to kind of wait for that one moment where she stopped, and so did he, and that was all we needed. And was able to put him down on the ground right about dusk. So, which then is the complete opposite of kudu hunting in the Limpopo, is that heavy bush veld is the primarily, locked in under a tree in the bushes, and it's trying to get eyes on these gray ghosts that literally blend into the tree that they're standing behind. That particular area does have some hilly terrain, holds a lot of kudu. Spotted a few up there, but between my 23 and 24 hunts, was hunting kudu on both hunts. I did not get a kudu until day 19 of 2 10-day hunts. I was on hunt number 2, the 9th day, was able to finally get a kudu.
Wow.
It was just tough, and that was really the main reason why I decided to go back-to-back years. I'm like, and didn't get that animal I was looking for the first trip over. I'm like, this is what I want to get. Didn't come together. I'm like, oh, let's go back and try it again. I had split that 10-day package with my son anyway. I'm like, well, there's a few animals that he harvested. I want to harvest. I'm like, I'll just do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And went back the next year. But yeah, it took 19 days.
My goodness.
To get the grade.
I've often said this, that sort of that power and the allure of a kudu before you even go to Africa is very strong. Everybody dreams of a kudu, and it's a fantastic animal. But when you go after one, when you're actually trying to go and it challenges you and you don't get it, and you got to come back for a second trip, that kudu eats up at you even more. And there's not many people, a lot of people can be successful in their first time, and that's fantastic. But if you don't go and get one on your first time, and like you got to come back, or somebody else has to come back for the second trip, it eats up at you a lot. It's just that animal just hooks into you, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely does. And especially, being able on the first trip, I was able to get Nala. So I'm seeing the spirals, and to me, that's one of the prettiest animals.
Yes.
In Africa.
Yes.
And not not the most difficult animal to hunt. At least it wasn't in Limpopo. It was a lot more to me in the Eastern Cape.
Mhm.
But their shy nature, their challenge, and their look is striking. So that I kind of got that spiral bite with that, and so the good second trip was kudu, and I got a cracker of a bush buck on the first day.
Oh, you did? I'd like to hear that.
Right place, right time. We were hunting actually a couple of kudu that we had spooked up, kind of up in the mountainous area there, which also had a lot of river bottom running through it.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
with the lighter grass, with the bush buck light, that particular part of the property was very liked by the bush buck.
Yeah.
And we had chased these two nice bulls and couldn't get the drop on them. Then they gave us the slip. So we were coming back out at near dusk, ready to head back to the lodge. I came around the corner. I caught him feeding across the opening between the river bottom and the bush line. And it was quick, real quick.
Yeah.
Hurry up. And down he went. Which, again, that animal's unbelievably difficult to hunt. Very lucky, right place, right time.
Yeah. I bet you the PH's voice went up a couple of extra tones at the side of that bush buck.
It did. It's funny you say that because, sorry, I know that.
I'm just adjusting my camera here too, so don't worry. I got to.
No
My
problem.
battery was running a bit low, so excuse me if I'm just fiddling with the camera here. But yeah, carry on.
Really, I know when you say the PH's voice changed a few octaves. I think maybe that's something that a lot of people don't know, or maybe even if they've been over a few times, think it might be a joke. When your PH gets excited, you don't question what is it. Maybe, like, you probably don't question the price either. When he's like really excited and very obviously going, hey, I've had something, shoot the damn thing. Now, it takes a lot for guys that have been in it as long as you've done it. My last PH in Limpopo had been doing it for 20 years, and when they're fired up, boy, you just line up and go.
Yeah, and again, it's a difficult thing to explain to somebody because you will hear especially if you have a good relationship with your PH, you will hear in the sound of their voice. You will just notice that their mannerisms a little bit different, and you can tell the difference between they're trying to push some bullshit color variation on you that's way overcharged, or when they actually see a big foal ribok, a big bushbuck step out. It is so different.
Yeah.
It's natural. So a lot of the times happens with, especially in the area you're hunting down by the coast there in East London, you'll get these massive warthogs that will step out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys, I know those chaps up in the Eastern Cape, that side, they love a good warthog. So if they're excited, for example, then yeah, again, you got to put your trust in the PH, and you'll know afterwards when you start sharing those photos and chatting to other hunters just how special some of those animals are. But you got to go with it. You really do.
Right. Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, it happened to me again that trip in 24 with a clip springer.
Oh, yep. Okay.
And not even remotely on my radar. Not at all. Didn't think about him. Didn't really looked at him. Same thing. We were just scouting around, seeing what we could find, kind of seeing what the bush could provide that day, and saw a couple of females scoot through the bush, and he spots this guy on a rock, and literally eyes got big like saucers. I said,
right.
You are shooting that clip springer. I'm like, I am. He's like, you are right now. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust you on this one. Ended up being just a massive. It's still kind of unreal. It was crazy big for that little animal.
You'll have to send me a photo. I can put it
I,
up here on the video for the guys to see because it's clearly taking everyone's breath away.
I think he said if it was easily it was in the top 3 that he'd ever hunted.
Wow. Okay. No, that's a big
Yeah.
statement. That's good. I will definitely need to see
Yeah.
this little fella then.
I'll send it over to you. But, so that's, like I said, you never know what's around the next corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
And
if it's not on your list, if you're gonna if you're gonna hunt Africa by the alphabet, you're in trouble. I've figured that out real fast. It's like you got a plan, but the bush has got a whole nother plan for you. No matter where you're hunting, it's forget about it. Throw it out the window.
yeah, and also, a kudu is not just a kudu in South Africa. You're going to get Cape kudus. You're going to get kudus up in Limpopo, graders. You're going to get your Cape bushbucks, your Limpopo bushbucks. Just because you shot one up country doesn't mean it's going to be exactly the same type of hunt, same type of animal all over the place. And this is definitely the allure of the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, wherever these guys start going to different parts of the country, you start realizing that it's almost like you're hunting a new country. You really
Oh
are.
yeah.
And it's an incredible experience. You can't just say, well, I went to Limpopo and I shot a kudu there, so I'm not interested in anything else, because it's a different hunt, different animal. The way that it acts, the way that it feeds are all very, very different. In your huntings, is there maybe one particular animal that probably stood out to you that you thought was a lot more difficult of a hunt than you expected? I know you said you went after the springbok, which generally can be a pretty tough animal. But is there one animal that really stood out to you and you thought, sure, that was not an easy animal to go after?
The springbucks were very elusive and it's no surprise for considering their size that they would be just because of that nature. I of the animals that I took, that I was surprised at the difficulty or the elusiveness and the challenge was zebra and
Right.
giraffe.
Okay. That's
Hunting
interesting.
some guys think hunting giraffes easy. It was not. But that trying to get on zebra was very challenging. It was, to me, reminded me a lot of trying to hunt whitetails. Extremely alert, very elusive, always never alone. So you've got lots of eyes, it seemed like, lots of noses. It could have just been the day too, but yeah, that they were an interesting hunt, and it was in the rain, which made it even funner.
Yeah. Yeah. That always adds an extra element to it for sure. It's amazing the amount of interviews that I've done for this podcast. You never hear any animal spoken the same by everybody else. I've heard guys say that, well, we walked up and we were 80 yards from a zebra, we shot it and it dropped right there in its tracks. And then you hear guys that have gone 3 or 4 days after these things. So this is always why I love doing these types of things, of chatting with people and their stories. It's just hearing that it is so different across the board. You can read as many reports as you want online, and you can chat to as many references as you want online, and you are not going to have the same trip as those people. It's going to be a whole different experience, and it's going to be catered completely for you. And this is why I love having you on and doing this comparison between the Eastern Cape and Limpopo, because again, the guys are going to say, well, if I go to Limpopo, am I going to have a trip like this? And if I go to Eastern Cape, am I going to have a trip like that? And you kind of got to say, I don't know. It's going to be up to you and your pH and the animals. It's how Africa is.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just to finish off your question,
Sure.
Eland in the mountains, unbelievably challenging.
Yep.
Unbelievably challenging. A lot like the kudu was tough, but you're able to spot them and evaluate them and then make a plan. Trying to find eland in those valleys, on those hills, in those mountains, unbelievably difficult. I know it would have, but after slip on slippery rocks, one day of looking for eland was enough for me. With a banged up leg, and I'm like, I'll get them on the next trip.
So going forward, is that the main target on the next trip?
Yeah, I think I need to. I haven't gotten Neil to finish the spirals. So, and then mountain reedbuck and common reedbuck are kind of up there. I'd like to go after Gemsies again. Um, I've hunted them before. I like it. Something cool about them. So I'm kind of an open. I'm a little bit of an open book on the next time around. Just kind of see what plays out. Like, hey, I told you earlier when we started, big kudu walk or a big impala walks out. I'll take one every time. But same thing with a kudu. I'm like, you gonna put a 51-inch Cape kudu in front of me? I'm gonna take that every day.
I don't blame you. I don't think there's many people that would pass up on that. That's an extremely phenomenal animal. And kind of back to the Eastern Cape, or are you going to try and venture to KwaZulu-Natal side, see the Northwest, maybe somewhere different in South Africa?
Uh, I think we're gonna kind of base out of the Eastern Cape on the next one, but we're kind of talking about doing some hunting over in the Free State.
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
uh, so we'll kind of just see what shakes out. Maybe in the future, I'd like to venture like into Namibia. Had a
Nice.
few friends that have hunted up there, so just kind of see what shakes out. I'm not a big dangerous game guy. Do a buffalo hunt, but I don't have problems. Hunting the same species of plains game, looking for something different or more unique, or you know, whatever. It's
Mhm.
like there's you never see the same thing twice. So
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that it doesn't necessarily come down to the animal per se. It's more about the actual hunt, the being out there, the getting up on the top of the mountains and glassing and getting down into those riverbeds and seeing what comes out. And then if it's an animal that comes out that you may have hunted before, then you can be like, yeah, but this is a different hunt. It's a whole different
right.
type of an outcome. I know a lot of the times this tends to happen with animals like a waterbuck. A waterbuck is
Mhm.
one of those incredible animals that is not necessarily on the top of everybody's list, or maybe even their first time, but it's always one of those ones where we were walking through a river valley and all of a sudden this just massive waterbuck bull jumped out. It's kind of one of those animals. So I like the
Right.
fact that you're not confined to a list or a package and you're just going to say, well, let's walk out there and see what comes.
Funny you said waterbuck because an animal that really never interested me a whole lot. Um, ended up ended up hunting one on my first trip, and then this last time saw a couple of just tanks in them, and he's asking my PH is asking me, he's like, yeah. I ended up passing. I said, yeah, you know what? I think next time we're gonna have to take one of those big water bucks down. He's like, yeah, probably not a bad idea. I'm like, when you see those, I mean, I took a nice one, but
Yeah.
we saw a couple that you go, whoa, it's different.
Yeah.
Um, and then
Yeah.
actually, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. So I was going to say, yes, there's a big difference between a good representative of a waterbuck bull and a giant waterbuck bull. So I was kind of just adding to what you're saying there. You see the difference very easily.
Right. I think subconsciously, what got my interest into Lechwe is I wanted to hunt Lechwe, which I did on this last trip,
Okay.
was the ring, kind of the ring horn of
Yep.
the waterbuck. But uh, now the Lechwe I think is a much more I, not statuesque. I don't know. I'm missing the word here.
Almost like a
Persian,
more, yeah, yeah, almost like a more
more
regal
regal.
sort of animal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh, they're I loved hunting them and seeing them. They're just pretty standing out there in the plains.
Yeah, they are. I hunted many, many lechwe in my time, and I could not get enough of them. Absolutely incredible. I just love the way that they run and the habitat that they used to live in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
really, it's phenomenal. But look, I don't want to take up too much of your time. There's just one question that popped into my head that I'd love to throw at you because I can see my cameras are going flat and batteries and all sorts, so I don't want to lose it, my
Yeah,
train of thought. But if somebody wanted to contact you and was kind of saying, I'm on the fence between Eastern Cape and Limpopo, what's kind of the one, three things, or maybe there's more, maybe there's less, that you would put back to them and say, these are the things you got to think about, and they might help you decide on whether to choose from Limpopo or Eastern Cape? Can you kind of come up with maybe some things that you put back to someone like that?
sure. I would say what what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking for um, a hard, not a hard, a harder hunt, I guess per se? Like getting, do you want your boots on the ground all the time? Do you want to get up? You want to get out there, stand in the mountains? You want that? You go to the Eastern Cape, hunt the coastal regions. You can have that type of hunt. Are you content with on the cruiser, on the Baki, hanging out, looking over the top of the bush belt, and then finding animals to pursue? Limpopo, no problem. Okay. Do you want more of a laid? I think you get a laid back feel both places, but it just
Sure.
to me, in my just my experience over there, it seemed that it's a more laid back experience on the Eastern Cape. A little bit more not formal or business like, but just a little bit more with this is how we do things and this is how we're going to do it. And here's today's plan
Hmm.
up there. If that's what you're in, either both work. I would say that's my take. And then who do you jive best with? Really, ultimately, I think is what it comes down to. Because, and I guess the other thing is, do you care so much about the the habitat of the game you wish to pursue? Because if you want to hunt springbuck, you're going to have a more traditional springbuck hunt in the Eastern Cape, at the edge of the Karoo, that way, versus Limpopo. They're just not a native species up there per se, um, not as wide open.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking for? I mean, you again, like I wanted a Cape bushbuck. Well, I had to go to the Cape to get that now because I had Limpopo bushbuck.
Right.
Okay, living in two completely different types of country. So it's just a matter of what experience, I guess. What experience do you want? But who you jive with best comes into play, wherever they are. I'm like, I wouldn't pick a guy in the Free State over a guy in the Eastern Cape or a guy in Limpopo if I didn't feel a good connection there. If I don't feel like we're going to connect and it's not there relatively quickly, it's an awful lot of money to go over there and not have maybe the experience you could have.
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely fantastic advice and so important because, you could shoot a 51-inch kudu bull with a guy that you absolutely had the best time of your life with. You chat around the fire, you've hunted hard, he's given you everything. Or you could shoot a 60-inch kudu bull with someone that's just an absolute moron that you have not gotten on with and didn't produce your expectations. And yet, I guarantee you're going to appreciate and enjoy that 50-inch kudu bull a lot better than what you will. And it just shows, to add to what you said, that if you go in, if you know what you're looking for, if you understand what you're looking for, then inversely, you're going to find an outfitter that is going to suit you and your trip. And that makes a world of difference, as I'm sure you very well know.
And don't be afraid to experience other places. I think maybe that was my initial hesitation the most was, I've hunted here in this place twice, comfortable here, I like it here, but I'm like, wait a second, there's more to experience.
Mhm.
You're not offending your previous outfitter.
Yeah.
It's business, and there's lots of competition in that industry over there, as you well know. So, and there's a lot of options. So don't be afraid. There's nothing wrong with hunting with the same outfitter 5 times by any stretch of the means. But life to me is all about experience.
Yeah.
So we'll go out and experience some things. Maybe, but do your homework so you don't have a bad one.
There we go. Yeah. Well, Charles, you've definitely saved me the knife's edge of trying to explain which is better, the Eastern Cape or Limpopo. Because I know if I did that on a solo episode, I would have got a lot of angry emails from Limpopo outfitters afterwards. So you definitely helped me balance that discussion up pretty nicely.
I'm gonna say I'm not picking one over the other either, because there are pros on both sides of the fence,
Oh, well, then I
one
can just
hundred
scratch
percent.
that next question off my notepad I got there next to. Ask him which one's better. So I'll have to scratch that one out.
Uh,
No, look, Charles, this has been absolutely invaluable. I'm sure everybody listening is going to definitely help it out. I wish I could talk to you for another hour or two, but my cell phone battery is starting to shout at me here and saying I got 2% left, and I really don't want to end off this call too early. But listen, man,
no
hopefully I
problem.
can get a trophy photo of you sitting behind a nice big eland bull in the mountains there of the Eastern Cape one day.
I hope so. I hope so. And I'll share over that clip springer. You can have a look at them.
Yes, please do. Send me through a couple photos. We'll try and put them in the video for everybody to see. But yeah, listen, Charles, just before we head off, if anybody is interested, maybe reaching out for you, can they do that? And if so, how would they go about that?
Absolutely. You've got my email address.
Yes.
They can hit me that way, and I'm always happy to talk. You can Facebook is great. You know, it seems like you can get random messages from anywhere. So you can always find my name on there and send me a message, just kind of like, when you and I started talking. So yeah, absolutely. Be happy to help anybody who's interested.
Cool, man. And yeah, thanks again, once again, for reaching out. This was an incredible episode, and I'll put some of your details below for those that are interested. Charles, thank you very much, man. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks very much for doing this. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely, Sean. It's my pleasure. If you want to do it again sometime, we certainly can.
Definitely. Definitely. Thanks very much. Take care.